A lot of people have accused In Another World with My Smartphone of being a ripoff of ReZero or Konosuba, which I find ridiculous. I mean, it's not like the main character appears before God after getting killed in a ridiculous manner. Bad example. I'm sure that there isn't a pair of twins that dress identically but have different hairstyles like in ReZero. Well, it's not like one of them has to teach the main character how to read their language, like Rem did for Subaru. Well, at least the protagonist doesn't get a spell that lets him steal stuff like in Konosuba. But at least there isn't a joke immediately afterwards about that spell being used to steal panties. But... Okay. Yes, there are a few similarities between ReZero, Konosuba, and In Another World with My Smartphone, but most of those are purely superficial. They're all from the isekai genre, so it makes sense that they play off of the same tropes and cliches. No Game No Life had the same element about the characters needing to learn the writing of the world they traveled to, but no one's drawing connections there because that anime aired long enough ago that no one has it fresh in their mind. What I'm saying is you don't need to say that a show is a ripoff of another show just to discredit it. No, this anime does more than enough to ruin its own reputation without any kind of outside help. So, let's get to it, shall we? Hello, I'm Jacob Chimera, and welcome to the Anime Lookback at Summer 2017. The isekai genre has been exceedingly popular in recent years. All manner of characters have been whisked off to worlds that either heavily resemble or are literally MMORPGs. However, one cannot help but feel that they're scraping the bottom of the barrel when the twist to this series is that the main character has his smartphone with him. Because nothing says high fantasy like a teenager playing Flappy Bird on his Android. In Another World with My Smartphone focuses on Mochizuki Toya, a young man that dies after God accidentally drops a bolt of lightning on him. Rather than fixing the root of the problem and, undoing striking an adolescent boy dead, God decides that the best course of action is to have Toya be reborn into a fantasy world. God allows Toya to bring one thing with him, and Toya decides the best choice is his bloody smartphone. Insert some obligatory joke about millennials not being able to live without their smartphones. I don't know. In this world, Toya is given infinite magic power, finds himself a harem of cliches, becomes one of the most important people in the world, and does pretty much everything else you would expect in a crappy isekai anime. This story is awful. That is, if you can call this exercise in futility a story. There is no progression and no focus. The only semblance of a plot that there is hinted at in the 3rd episode, and then not even addressed until the last 4 episodes. Even in those last 4 episodes, it's not the main focus, and it isn't given a proper resolution. Rather, a cliffhanger hinting at another season. The story and conflict in the show is secondary to fan service and wish fulfillment. An episode's runtime is generally dedicated to inane romantic misunderstandings, endless waffling, the girls being stripped down, and Toya making modern conveniences like ice cream and bicycles, only for those things to never appear again. Besides every other problem with what I just mentioned, this destroys any hope of a coherent plot and makes the show's pacing a mess. The way Toya is portrayed is what creates most of the problems in this series. He has limitless magical powers, but he's your generic bland anime protagonist. He's a blank slate that the viewers are supposed to project themselves onto so they can pretend they're the big, strong hero and have a bevy of women swooning over them. Now, a show can make an overpowered character interesting, but to do this, the character needs to have a dynamic personality, and they still need to have some kind of obstacles they need to overcome. But Toya is boring, and because he's boring but overpowered, he ends up being unrelatable. In addition, because Toya has limitless power, there's no way for the show to build dramatic tension. As soon as any kind of conflict is introduced, it's immediately resolved. For example, in the second episode, Toya ends up at the mansion of a nobleman. He's told the man's wife has incurable blindness, but Toya then immediately cures her. In episode 9, there's an entire army of superpowered, nigh unkillable undead soldiers converging on a fort. They say the army can't be stopped, only for Toya to immediately stop them single-handedly. There's no point to any of it. It doesn't add to his character because Toya is already established as the standard good guy anime protagonist. And because the conflict is resolved as soon as it's introduced, there's no way for the audience to become invested. To make matters worse, Toya doesn't have to work for anything. God gives him all of his powers and combat expertise before he travels to the fantasy world. Once Toya arrives, he's showered with riches and praise everywhere he goes. Half the dialogue in the show is just people talking about how awesome Toya is. Overcoming adversity and conquering obstacles through perseverance and hard work is what makes a character relatable. But with his utter lack of personality coupled with all the power, wealth, and women he's done nothing to deserve, Toya comes off as a self-righteous, arrogant prick. So that's the situation with the main character. And I suppose in a way, the supporting cast matches him perfectly. By which I mean they're all either annoying or boring. They're so flat and static they might as well have been a bunch of cardboard cutouts. Not once was I invested in any of them. And the girls in Toya's harem are the worst written I have ever seen. They're nothing but a bunch of cliches. Yai is the tough warrior girl. Els is a tsundere, complemented by her twin sister Lin's being the shy, soft-spoken one. Lin is the typical stuck-up gothic Lolita. Urne is the kind-hearted princess. Francesca is the usual robot character. Emotionless, yet weirdly sexual, constantly alluding to the fact that she has a fully functional downstairs, and Toya can use it whenever he wants. Wait a second. A literal sex doll with no defining personality traits or characteristics aside from craving Toya's affection? I think I just found the perfect metaphor for how every female character in this show is written. That's the problem. The female characters exist only for fan service. Yes, there's the typical underwear and swimsuit scenes with the camera spending too much time focused on their chests. But it runs deeper than that. The girls, despite being adventurers, are depicted as powerless to a near comical degree. They can't do anything without Toya's help. He's constantly swooping in to save them, sometimes from the lamest situations. When Linz needs to learn a new spell, she can't even picture what a bubble is without Toya helping her. A fucking bubble! Their fixation on Toya reaches a point where it's just frustrating. They're all somehow okay with the other girls marrying Toya and sharing him, but they're also all insanely jealous of each other. I like strong, independent female characters. Not every single girl in a series needs to be written that way, but when all of them lack personality and independence, it becomes a serious problem. All of this is symptomatic of the bigger issue. The fact that this is a wish fulfillment anime. It doesn't matter that the girls are poorly written, because they exist only as bland arm candy for Toya. I utterly loathe this anime. I frequently had to take breaks while watching it, just so my brains wouldn't come trickling out of my ears. To simplify, the main reason why this show sucks is because it's nothing but fantasy wish fulfillment. The story isn't written to be engaging, the characters aren't made to be relatable, and it lacks all form of depth. Now, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of wish fulfillment in moderation. But when an entire show is nothing but a self-insert fanfiction, it's just bad writing. It promotes bad habits among the people that watch it to self-insert into Toya's role, and it's frustratingly boring for people that watch it in hopes of good story or characters. I wouldn't even recommend this as a so bad it's good anime. This is a so bad it's bad anime.